Welcome back to Artificial History, where we dive into the fascinating what-ifs of history. I'm your host, Dr. Don Texist. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Today we're exploring an alternate timeline where the United States and the Soviet Union didn't become adversaries after World War II, but instead continued their alliance. Let's jump right in. In our actual history following World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union became locked in a decades-long Cold War. The ideological divide between capitalism and communism led to global tension, an arms race, and numerous proxy wars. In this alternate timeline, President Harry Truman and Joseph Stalin recognized the importance of working together to rebuild Europe and maintain global peace, despite their ideological differences. The death of Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1945 left Truman with the responsibility to shape the post-war world, and in this timeline, he chose a path of compromise and cooperation. Together, the US and USSR spearheaded the reconstruction of Europe. The Marshall Plan and Soviet aid programs worked in tandem, helping to rebuild war-torn nations and create a more unified and prosperous continent. This cooperation was facilitated by a series of agreements and treaties that outlined mutual respect for each nation's sphere of influence and a commitment to non-interference in each other's affairs. As allies, the two superpowers helped to strengthen the United Nations, making it a more effective organization for resolving international disputes and promoting global cooperation. The US and USSR set aside their ideological differences to focus on common goals, such as preventing the spread of nuclear weapons and fostering international trade. The division of Germany never occurred, as Truman and Stalin agreed on a unified plan for the country's future. Germany remained a single neutral nation, focusing on economic recovery and rebuilding its infrastructure. This was made possible by the mutual understanding that neither superpower would attempt to impose its ideology on Germany, allowing the German people to determine their own path. The Iron Curtain never descended across Europe. Eastern European nations, though still influenced by Soviet policies, were not forced into the Soviet sphere of influence. They maintained more independence and experienced greater economic growth. This was achieved by the US and USSR agreeing to respect each nation's right to self-determination, fostering an atmosphere of mutual trust. The space race became a cooperative venture instead of a competition. The US and USSR combined their resources and expertise, accelerating humanity's exploration of the cosmos. This was made possible by a groundbreaking meeting between President John F. Kennedy and Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev in 1961, where they agreed to share technology and knowledge in the pursuit of space exploration. In the later decades of the 20th century, the world saw a dramatic reduction in military conflicts. Without the superpowers backing opposing sides in proxy wars, many regional disputes were resolved peacefully or never escalated. The US and USSR, guided by leaders like Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev, found common ground in arms control, leading to significant disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation agreements. One notable example of peaceful resolution in this alternate timeline is the Korean Peninsula. In the absence of Cold War tensions, North and South Korea never experienced the devastating Korean War. Instead, the two countries underwent a peaceful reunification process in the late 20th century, resulting in a united and prosperous Korea. Fast-forwarding to the present, we see a world that is vastly different. While the US and Russia still maintain strong influence, they work together more often, leading to a more stable global order. The European Union is more inclusive, and the global economy is more interconnected. Countries like China and India have emerged as major players on the world stage, but they do so in a more peaceful and cooperative environment. While this alternate history presents a more peaceful and cooperative world, it's essential to remember that history is a complex web of interconnected events. We can never know for sure how things would have played out, but it's fascinating to imagine how the world might have been different if the US and USSR had remained allies after World War II and continued their alliance despite their ideological differences. That's all for today's episode of Artificial History. If you enjoyed this alternate timeline, please give us a like and leave a comment with your thoughts on how the world might have been different if the US and USSR had continued their alliance. And as always, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. See you next time. Your Dr. Don Texist.